We're here in Jefferson Gardens in the middle of Leamington Spa. Even on a cold, grey, miserable day, it's a stunning piece of parkland, and it's the responsibility of Warwick District Council. And today we're going to find out a bit more about public procurement markets, talk to the council and some growers to look at some of the opportunities and the challenges involved in supplying this market.
Right, I'm Will Lamb, I'm Managing Director of Baginton Nurseries. And we are in our 30th year growing bedding plants. We diversified into hanging baskets, as you can see, value-added containers and all sorts of varied plants. We're looking at sort of 40% of our turnover is for contract growing, which includes local authorities, and the rest is to garden centres and high street shops, the retail side really. We have a lot of councils that we supply at the moment, varying from some very local councils to ones further afield. We prefer to have the opportunity to tender in October, November for the following summer. The pricing structure is index linked, so we set off at the price in year one, and they give us the index that they're working to uplift our prices for the following year and so on. Delivery times are all set out in the tendering forms usually. However, there is flexibility, because obviously you're dealing with growing plants, and most local authorities or the people that are looking after the contracts do appreciate that because it's a growing plant, things can be advance of the time or maybe not grown enough for the specification. Without exception, we've always been upfront about things. It's always better to just sort of come out with it and say, well, there is a problem here, and they're just not going to be ready. They've all died off. We've had a rabbit running wild in the greenhouse. We are an accredited nursery. We've been accredited for 12 years now, and it's run by the BOPP, British Ornamental Plant Producers, and they audit us every year, and we have to meet rigorous level standards of quality, of service, quality of plant, environmental policies we have to have in place. It's not a requirement. I'm just saying that it helps myself when I'm tendering no end, because I've got all the relevant documents all in place. Working with the local authorities has many advantages. They providing us as a business a sort of buffer against the variabilities of supplying the retail industry. There are cost savings in terms of labelling, although there are other aspects of supplying a local authority contract that actually cost a bit more maybe in certain areas.
Talked about quality assurance. Are there other aspects that you think make you a particularly good supplier to work with for local authorities?
I think probably locality to some authorities, definitely. If you're close to the contract, then you can see each other more often, have a closer relationship with them. We just make sure that we have attention to detail all the way along the line, so if there is a problem, we can spot it. I'm sure that the guys that we deal with, if they have minimal aggravation involved in the supply of the bedding, then that's what they're looking for.
The main advantage of supplying the public procurement market is that the grower knows that the stock is going to go to the customer at a certain date, so they can plan this space for future crops, and they're guaranteed pretty much of that income to the business, so it's important for cash flow. Although they may have to take a little bit less as opposed to garden centre sales, sometimes garden centre sales are done on gentlemen's agreements, and when the weather's poor and the sales and the footfall isn't there for the garden centre, sometimes customers, as in the garden centre, can actually back out of taking the product that they'd previously agreed to.
John Holmes. I'm now a Green Space Development Officer for Warwick District Council. I've been doing that job for about 20 years. Local authority market for plants is a little bit different to sort of like retail plants because there's a wider range of plants and we get a bit picky on varieties and things because we need to incorporate lots of things that you might not want to incorporate in your own garden. Vast areas of particular one colours to get good impact, but I also try and incorporate lots of insect-friendly plants in our schemes as well.
Can you put a ballpark figure on the value of, say, bedding grants for Warwick District Council?
Value to the district,
Yeah.
it would be in millions.
Millions.
Yeah, because it's a floristic town and it brings a lot of tourists in. If we didn't have flowers, but a lot of people wouldn't come. So it is extremely valuable asset to the town, and people come to see the flowers. We have a Grade 2 listed gardens in the centre, which is the jewel in the crown of Leamington Spa, and it is extremely well loved by the population, and people come to see the flowers. It also lifts spirits. You don't realise how people appreciate the spring flowers and the summer flowers to make them feel good, and that's got to be good for everybody. Process at the moment, we have a grounds maintenance contractor who supply our grounds maintenance work, and they source the suppliers for us, but we actually help and assist in the process. So we require a minimum of 3 prices for each tender process. So they go out and source companies which they feel may hit the mark, and then we assess them whether they're any good or not, because we've been through the ringer quite a few times, so we know what companies are good and what companies can produce. For bedding plants, it's a supply summer bedding contract and it's a supply spring bedding contract, so they get renewed twice a year. So we have to go through a tendering process twice. We are looking at, because our next contract is 8 years long, so it would be beneficial to tie up with a grower for those 8 years if our procurement system would allow us to do that. Local businesses, we support them wherever possible because there's many benefits to that. We use local growers because the plants are sourced quite locally. We have been through source them miles and hundreds of miles away, and we like to make sure that we check the process regularly, so that means lots of visits, and if they're 300 miles away that takes a whole day instead of a matter of hours. Plant growing conditions, if they're grown locally, is similar to where the plants are going to be planted in, so if you go a long way away it can be a 2-week window that the plants down south, when they come up here the temperature conditions isn't the same, so they struggle. So it's really beneficial that we use local people and go straight in the ground locally. The transport isn't an issue. Procurement is becoming more and more of an issue. At the moment, we and in our new grounds maintenance contract, we are lucky enough to go through the same process, because it is quite a lengthy process of getting tenders in, assessing them, and we've given that to our contractor to do. So we, as clients, we'll just make sure that they're doing as we wish, really. So we have a process to go through, and at the end of it, there is a little bit of room for manoeuvre. If you went straight down the procurement line, if the company that was 500 miles away came in cheaper, we would have to go with those. But at the moment, we were able to tweak slightly, which is much beneficial to the plants and the service we get and the end result. Good supply is one that we can trust, foremost. They need to be very honest if they can and can't do things. What the grower doesn't see is the military operation of planting 100,000 bedding plants out in 4 towns. That is quite a precise task that obviously the contractor that plants them wants to do it very efficiently. So if we've got plants missing, they don't want to go back to beds and overplant, because that just wastes time and effort.
Are there sort of environmental targets, environmental measures that you have to meet as part of the procurement process, or is it solely about cost?
Our authority, it is basically cost driven, but we're also definitely going away from peat. So we don't have any peat in any of our containers, baskets, hanging baskets, floral fountains, but we do allow a certain amount of peat in the bedding pot plant production, but that is being dwindled out. And we're also trying to reduce waste. So we're trying to keep plants to potless plants, so you have trays instead of pots, so the plastic is kept down to a minimum. So there are targets which we're working towards. I think our specifications are quite detailed. We obviously specify the plant, how it's to arrive, like green, bushy, stopped, well rooted. We also specify the compost and also the pot size. and delivery days and dates.
Difficult times, budget cuts left, right and centre. How is that affecting the horticultural side of procurement?
We have to be more effective with what we do. So we need a good grower to provide the plants as requested, so the displays look good, because people expect value for money, and even more so now.
There are challenges with the public procurement cuts and spending cuts, but if councils and public procurement services can work together with commercial growers, there are further opportunities for growers to produce more for their local councils.